For centuries, Sparta carried the reputation of being the most feared city in the Greek world. A society molded for war, where every citizen was forged from childhood to fight, obey, and kill in the name of the homeland. Sparta was not merely a city. It was a symbol of discipline, brute strength, and endurance. Its warriors, the hoplites, were treated like demigods on the battlefield. Spartan culture valued silence, obedience, and sacrifice. Saying that Sparta was invincible wasn't an exaggeration. It was almost a dogma for the peoples of that era. But like every great power that believes itself eternal, Sparta began to crumble from within before being defeated by external enemies. Its decline didn't start with Rome, but with a series of internal and military deteriorations that slowly eroded what had once been considered indestructible. A definitive mark of this turning point was the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC, where the Spartans faced the Thebans under the command of Epaminondas. The defeat was more than military. It was symbolic. For the first time in ages, Sparta fell to another Greek army, and it fell hard. One of its kings, Cleombrotus I, was killed in battle. Thousands of soldiers were slain, and most critically, Spartan morale was shattered. This battle marked the end of Spartan hegemony in Greece. The city no longer had the same ability to replenish its population. The equals, as the full citizens of Sparta were known, were in sharp decline. Internal inequality grew. The Helots, slaves, revolted frequently, and the militarized society model began to look outdated in the face of political and cultural changes sweeping through the Greek world. Sparta, which once dictated the rules of war, now watched its influence vanish. Meanwhile, far away, a new force was rising. Still small, still distant, but moving with precision. Rome was watching and waiting. While Sparta grappled with its internal wounds and struggled to preserve the last remnants of its former glory, a new power was steadily and silently rising in the West, Rome. Unlike Sparta, which was born and died as a regional force, Rome expanded its domains through a cold, strategic, and highly effective method, not only by the strength of arms, but through political cunning and mastery of diplomacy. Its growth was like that of a serpent, observing its surroundings, slowly coiling around its prey until it suffocated it completely. After winning the Second Punic War against Carthage and defeating the legendary Hannibal, Rome became the uncontested master of the Western Mediterranean. But its eyes were set on the East. Greece, with its rich culture, abundant wealth, and growing internal instability, was the next target. And Rome knew it didn't need to invade with brute force right away. It was enough to offer protection, form alliances, and sign commercial treaties. Gradually, these friendly relations would evolve into dependence. That was Rome's great advantage. While Sparta saw the world through spears, Rome saw it through treaties. It would ally with a city-state, help settle a local conflict, overthrow a tyrant, supply troops, and in return, demand loyalty. But loyalty to Rome meant surrendering political autonomy, internal decision-making, and, ultimately, freedom. Over the years, this Roman embrace tightened around the Greek cities. Meanwhile, the Greeks fought among themselves, divided between those who saw Rome as a convenient ally and those who recognized it as the harbinger of domination. Sparta, no longer the city it once was, tried to preserve its independence, but found itself surrounded by a changing world. And Rome, with its policy of indirect conquest, had already sown the seeds of its presence in Greece. It didn't need to destroy Sparta, not yet. It only needed to wait until Sparta could no longer rise again. The final spark that ignited the confrontation between Rome and the last Greek resistances came from an internal conflict among the Hellenes themselves. The Achaean League, a confederation of Greek city-states aiming to unify Greece under a single command, viewed Rome's presence with suspicion, but it also saw Sparta, Rome's ally, as an obstacle to that unification. Although in decline, Sparta still carried enough symbolic and military weight to pose a threat to the League's hegemony. Amid growing tensions, the League made a fatal mistake. It attacked Sparta. What could have remained a localized dispute among Greek cities became the perfect justification for Rome to intervene directly. Rome no longer needed to hide its intentions. Now it had the ideal pretext. to defend its ally Sparta from an unjust aggression. But what Rome truly saw was an opportunity to crush, once and for all, Greek autonomy and eliminate any threat to its expansion in the eastern Mediterranean. The war that followed was swift, brutal, and decisive. Under the command of Consul Lucius Mummius Achaicus, Rome's legions marched across Achaean territory. There were no more treaties, no diplomacy, no alliances. This was the time for absolute force. City after city, Greek resistance collapsed. The campaign culminated in Corinth, the heart of the League, a city of immense cultural and economic significance. And there, Rome showed the world what happened to those who dared defy it. Corinth was razed, looted, and burned. Men were killed, women and children enslaved, temples desecrated, and works of art sent to Rome as trophies. It was more than a military victory. It was a message. A warning that the era of independent Greek city-states had come to an end, and that Greece's new fate would now be decided by Rome's hand. And it was in that landscape of smoke and silence that Sparta, despite never having fought against Rome, realized that its independence, too, was nothing more than an illusion. The destruction of Corinth was not merely a military victory. It was a symbolic act of total domination. Rome no longer acted like a power asking for passage, but as a force reshaping history in its own image. The Roman response to the Achaean League's offensive was a calculated display of brutality. A theater of war meant not only to eliminate enemies, but to plant fear in the heart of any city considering resistance. Lucius Mummius Achaicus, the Roman commander leading the campaign, marched with his legions in a methodical manner. No city of the Achaean League stood a chance against the discipline, weaponry, and organization of the Roman troops. When they reached Corinth, there was no mercy. The city, which for centuries had rivaled Athens as a cultural beacon, was treated as a warning. The Romans spared neither temples nor libraries, neither citizens nor scholars. Corinth was wiped off the map, as if its very existence had been a personal affront to the Roman Republic. This brutal act marked the definitive end of Greek autonomy. The Achaean League was dissolved, its leaders executed or taken to Rome as prisoners. Greece was divided into Roman provinces, Achaea and Epirus, and came under direct Roman rule. There was no room left for negotiation. Sparta, which had until then been spared thanks to its alliance with Rome, watched everything unfold without lifting a finger. But that silence was a reflection of a harsher truth. Sparta was no longer master of its own fate. It did not fight alongside the Greeks, but neither did it celebrate Rome's victory. It remained standing, untouched, yet stripped of power, stripped of glory. It was there, among the ruins of Corinth and the shadows of its own legacy, that Sparta understood. Rome did not need to destroy its enemies to defeat them. It only had to isolate them and let them forget who they once were. After the smoke of Corinth had cleared and the Roman banner fluttered over the ruins of Greek resistance, Sparta remained standing, but only in appearance. The former city of warriors, which once dictated the rhythm of war in the Hellenic world, had been reduced to a hollow symbol, respected only for its memory and tolerated for its submission. Rome, ever strategic, understood that it didn't need to erase Sparta as it had done with Corinth. It was enough to keep alive, just enough to serve as a reminder and a spectacle. Sparta became a museum city. Its customs were preserved, but only as folklore. The Romans, fascinated by the Spartan myth, treated the city almost like a historical attraction. The local population performed the old traditions, military dances, and training rituals for visitors, everything carefully maintained, yet emptied of any real threat. Sparta had become a relic, a living piece of propaganda for the Roman Empire. Over time, its political influence vanished. Spartan youth were no longer raised for war. The hoplites were replaced by ordinary citizens. The once feared army was quietly dissolved. Sparta was absorbed without resistance, without destruction, without bloodshed, and perhaps for that very reason, its fall was even more painful. There was no final cry for freedom, no last battle, no heroic sacrifice. There was only forgetting. Centuries later, sacked by barbarian invaders, Sparta crumbled into ruins and was abandoned. When the Western Roman Empire itself collapsed, there was nothing left in Sparta but stone, dust, and memories. And it is in that emptiness that Sparta's deepest defeat lies, not being remembered for what it was, but only for what it inspired. Legends, movies, fictions, and no reality. With Rome's victory, history was rewritten. Greece ceased to be the cradle of heroes and became just another province on the empire's map. And Sparta became the distant echo of a roar that once shook the world, but now was nothing more than a whisper among the broken columns of its past. If this story made you rethink everything you thought you knew about Sparta and Rome, then you're in the right place. Here, history isn't just told, it's lived, analyzed, and felt like an epic that still echoes through time. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell, because every week you'll find videos that reveal the untold side of history with intensity, depth, and emotion. If this video moved you, hit the like button and share it with someone who also believes that the past still has much to teach us. After all, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. See you in the next chapter.